the Red Wings coming back from the Four Nations tournament, you weren't really sure what you were going to get. They just came off of a loss going into the break, albeit to a good Tampa Bay Lightning team. And to that point, they had won, I think, 7 in a row. So they were playing really good hockey. They come off of the break and they go up 3-1 over the Wild. And you're like, all right back in business. We got like 2 minutes left. Okay, we're gonna walk away with a win, and they blow that game. They lose it in overtime. At the very least, you prefer to lose. If you're gonna lose a game, lose it in overtime because you still get a point. And then the very next day, they got to play the Anaheim Ducks, and you're like, okay, well, the Wild are a playoff team. You're a playoff team too, so it's understandable that you're gonna lose a game like that. But the Ducks, I mean, they're terrible. The Ducks are awful, and you're up, 4-1, and you're like, okay, there's no way they're gonna cut, and they come back. And at this point, I was like, okay, what are we like? Are we in our pre-March phase? Like the last 2 Marches, or I guess the last March mostly, the Red Wings just completely fall apart. And are we like seeing the signs of this? I'm not totally sure, but I'm not convinced that we're not. So the reason I am annoyed is on any other week, all right, at any other point, if you were to tell me over a weekend of 4 possible points that you get 3 out of those 4 points, I would say, all right, that's good. I can live with that. But given the standings, given the situation that the Red Wings find themselves in, given the advantage they could have gotten if they got that extra point, yes, I'm upset. Yes, I'm upset. You could have been 3 points ahead of the second wild card spot. You could have been just a few points out of that third spot in the Atlantic Division. And instead, we're talking about what could have been. Because, look, it's one thing to just lose a game. It's one thing, you go out there, you lose a game 3-2, or you lose a game 2-1, or you lose a game 4-2, something like that, all right? I get it. It's another thing when you are up late in a game and you blow it like that. And the Red Wings really can't afford to lose points like that. We saw what it was like last year when, okay, well, we're 9 points up, please. It's fine. Who cares that earlier in the year we lost to the San Jose Sharks, who were one of the worst teams in the league, or to the Anaheim Ducks, or to the Sharks again. What it is about these California teams, they always seem to beat us. Either way, those lost points on games where you're playing bad teams, or furthermore, you're playing teams that you just should beat or you have beat and you just blow it late, you can't miss those kinds of points. And tonight they got the Minnesota Wild, the team that they just blew that lead to. You got to think that these guys want to send a message. This time it's on the road. You got to think Minnesota wants to show them who's who and be like, okay, look, it wasn't just a fluke that we managed to come back on you. I don't think this is some, I don't think that losing that game to Minnesota is a nothing story. I would hope that it becomes one, but, down the stretch here, you got Minnesota, you got Columbus a couple of times, including that Stadium Series, which is, technically a neutral site game. But March, you're loaded with games. I mean, you got at least one back-to-back throughout the month, or you got 2 back-to-backs throughout the month, I should say. You got Carolina, who's a playoff team. You got Utah, and you got Washington. Washington's very good this year. Ottawa is fighting for their wild card spot. You got multiple games of Washington. You got multiple games of Ottawa. I'm just looking at all the you can't afford to be losing games that you have won, if that makes any sense. Now, the other thing I need to point out, because it feels so strange, but we actually have yet to have the NHL trade deadline. That is actually next week. This Four Nations Cup tournament thing, it really messed up with the dates of things. Normally, I think it would be around the end of February, but now it's going to be early March. And the Red Wings have already made a move. Now, it wasn't, an amazing. They dealt Ville Husso. Ville Husso goes to Anaheim for future considerations, which basically just means cap space. Because Ville Husso was getting paid a certain amount of money, and you ship him off for whatever future considerations might be. Maybe you get a draft pick or some money. I don't know. The Red Wings clearly have holes. They're definitely not a perfect team. Defensively, I think they could use a boost. I mean, just looking up and down the roster here, you know, you got a lot of young guys that I like in Simon Edvinson and Johansson and, some of these other guys that have come up. You don't really have that, you know, not difference maker. That's not really what I'm looking for, but maybe you eliminate, a little addition by subtraction. What exactly does a Tyler Mott do for you? Like what is a, what I'm not saying that these guys necessarily got to be traded. What does Tarasenko really do for you? And plus, you already have a very large pool of prospects. A lot of prospects that are pretty high up in a lot of people's minds, a lot of teams' minds. You have your superstar, your stud in Lucas Raymond. You have a very good captain in Dylan Larkin. You got a goal scorer in DeBrincat and Kane. And you got an elite defenseman in Sider. That's enough to get you into the playoffs. But if you want to be able to, continue to build this team, continue to make it better, which I think Steve Yzerman has a vested interest in wanting to do, okay, in year whatever it is, year 6, first of all, you had to make the playoffs, which is not set in stone at this point. And secondly, you want to show that you are going to continue to get better year in and year out like you have since Yzerman took over. But it starts with finishing the job. And there's not any one player in particular that I am, dying for the Red Wings to go out and trade for, because, like, to be perfectly frank with you guys, I don't know who that player is. However, I wouldn't mind to see, okay, we just got rid of Ville Husso. We have money. We have space. Maybe you go out and get someone on the defense. Maybe you go out and you even get a goalie. Maybe you go, because I don't know how well Alex Lyon is going to do here for you down the stretch. Cam Talbot has been pretty solid, but he's not sticking around for much longer. And maybe you want to have somebody to pair up with Sebastian Cossa in the event that he comes up, either late in the year. Maybe you just call him up. I don't know. Or, next year when Talbot is gone, and I doubt you're going to keep Alex Lyon really around for too much longer. Maybe you go out and you get that veteran goalie who's in kind of a bad spot, who has shown an ability to perform down the stretch. I don't know. I'm not a hockey expert. No, you could probably tell. I'm just a fan, all right? But there's definitely moves, or at least a move, that can be made, I would think. The team is just, to me, it's too good not to, and especially now with Andrew Kopp going down, and you don't know when you're getting Michael Rasmussen back. Neither of those guys are superstars. Neither of those guys are difference makers necessarily, but they do a lot of grind work. They do a lot of dirty work. You're going to want to fill those holes. It's similar to what the Pistons did with getting Dennis Schroeder. I'm not looking for Sidney Crosby or Connor McDavid. I am looking, though, for someone in Kopp's range, honestly. Someone in Rasmussen's range. I preferably a little better, but, somebody, basically. So, maybe you just end up bringing up some of the guys from Grand Rapids. I wouldn't be opposed to that either, but I think preferably I'd like to see maybe you pair some of those prospects that you got and go out and get a guy that is maybe not, 30 years old. That might not be advisable, but somebody who's maybe in their mid-20s. I know Dylan Cousins was a name that I'd heard thrown around from Buffalo. I don't know if that's realistic, but, maybe he's the kind of guy that you go after. So we'll check back in by the end of this, or by next week, to see where the Red Wings are at. They're going to have another game. Next week, it's going to be against Carolina, but you can go down this stretch here where you got Minnesota and then a couple of games against Columbus. If you can go out, let's see, that's 6 total points. I mean, if you can get 4+ points out of that, I can live with that. Like, if you can get 4 or more points out of this stretch of 3 games, I could probably live with that. It means you get at least 2 wins. Preferably, I think if you're going to lose a game, you lose the game against the Western Conference team. If you can beat Columbus back-to-back, that would be huge, because Columbus is right there behind you trying to get up into that wild card race. So it's going to be interesting down the stretch, and I think, obviously next week will be the week of the trade deadline, so we'll see if the Red Wings end up making a move by next Tuesday. You never know. So, yeah, that's pretty much all I got. Hi, it's me again. If you enjoyed what you just saw, hit the like and subscribe button. We do live shows every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. Hope to see you there.